Yo, what's going on guys? CultOfMush back at it with another video. This is a $1,000 gaming PC build, and I haven't done a PC build in a very long time. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks, and typically I try to do PC builds weekly, but I just wanted the holidays to pass, and I've been trying to diversify my content up, do less PC builds, do some other content, but a lot of you guys have been requesting me to get back to doing PC builds more consistently. So without further ado, let's get right into this $1,000 build. Kicking things off with the CPU, I went with the Intel Core i5-4690K 3.5 GHz quad-core processor. A lot of you guys off the bat might be asking why I didn't go with the i5-6600K. That CPU is fetching some ridiculous prices right now on Amazon. That CPU is like $280 and I just don't think that's worth it. Some places I've seen it as high as $300. So right now I think the i5-4690K is just a better option at around $220. It's a K-Series processor, so definitely pick up a CPU cooler with it. Even something like the Hyper 212 EVO is going to let you do a little bit of overclocking, and that's going to give you more performance out of the CPU. Otherwise, if you're not interested in overclocking, you can just pick up a 4690, or you can even dock this CPU down to something like an i5-4460. And that CPU will still perform well. Only get the i5-4690K if you plan on overclocking, because if you don't, it's just a waste of money. But the i5-4690K is going to do great in games. As long as it's paired with a good video card, you're going to be getting great performance. And I know a lot of games these days recommend an i7. I don't know what the case for that is. I'm still running games fantastically with my i5. Even games that do recommend an i7, I'm still running them fine with an i5 that's overclocked to 4.2 GHz. And I expect you guys to have a similar experience if you do decide to pick up the i5-4690K. Just overclock it a little bit, and you'll be good to go. For the motherboard, I went with the Gigabyte GA-Z97X-SLI ATX LG1150 motherboard. This is a relatively budget-end motherboard coming to the market at around $110. Newegg is also offering a $10 mail-in rebate, so that knocks it down to $100. And it's got all the features you want. It's an Intel Z97 board, so you're going to be able to overclock on it. 4 RAM slots up to DDR3 3000 MHz and up to 32 GB of max memory. It's got RAID support, Crossfire support, SLI support, 4 SATA 6 GB/s ports, and onboard USB 3 header. And it all comes in a pretty nice black and red color scheme that's going to go well with the build, and it wasn't too expensive at around $110. I didn't want to overspend and get something like a $150 motherboard, because at the end of the day, $1,000 is still mid-range, so a $100 motherboard is going to get the job done and work really well. Moving on to memory, Kingston HyperX Fury Black 8GB, 24GB sticks running at DDR3 1866 memory. $40 for an 8GB kit of RAM, that is so great. Just a fantastic price for 8 gigs of RAM. And just like with CPUs these days, a lot of games have started to recommend 16 gigabytes. Like Star Wars Battlefront was one game that recommended 16 gigabytes of RAM. My system runs 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I had no problem running Star Wars Battlefront at all with that amount of RAM. I really don't see 16 gigabytes becoming a standard as far as games go for the next few years. And even still, like I said, the motherboard does have 4 RAM slots, so in the future, you can just pick up another kit of this RAM, and you'll have 16 gigabytes and you'll be good to go. But right now, 8 gigabytes is still completely sufficient for the latest games. For storage, first the mechanical drive, I went with the Western Digital Caviar Blue 1TB. It's a Caviar Blue 1TB, $50. Not much more to say. This hard drive will be your mass storage drive where you're going to put all your games, movies, all that kind of stuff. And it's always good to get a mechanical drive because games these days, the file sizes are getting somewhat ridiculous. A game like Titanfall is 50 gigabytes, Witcher 3 is like 40 gigabytes, and then you have DLC for games. It's always good to get a mechanical drive, and for a lot of people, 1TB isn't even going to be enough. If you're the kind of person where you plan on buying a lot of games off Steam during the Steam sales and you want to have them downloaded all at once, maybe even look at a Seagate 2TB or 3TB drive. Those are relatively cheap at around $80 to $100. Otherwise, the Caviar Blue 1TB is still a pretty good amount of storage. For most people, I think 1TB as their mass drive to download all their games, movies is just fine. For the SSD, you're going to pick up a Samsung 850 EVO-Series 250GB solid state drive. $80 for a 250GB SSD, that's fantastic. And for a lot of people, they can get away with 250 gigabytes and they won't even need the mechanical drive. I know a lot of people that only play 1 or 2 games at a time and then they delete games. If you're the kind of person like that, maybe you can forego the mechanical drive altogether. Having that Caviar Blue is still something I recommend. And as far as the Samsung 850 EVO goes, I was running a Samsung 840 EVO in my build for a while and that was working fantastically. And the fact that you're getting 250 gigabytes for $80 is just a great deal. And 250 gigabytes gives you enough storage where you can have the OS and you can have some games on there. Like say you play Skyrim a lot and you want the load times to be faster, well then load Skyrim onto the SSD. Battlefield 3 is a game that has somewhat long load times, throw it on the SSD, that's going to be much faster. So 250 gigabytes does give you a bit more flexibility opposed to having 120 gigabytes or even 64 gigabytes. And for $80, it's easy to fit an SSD like this in a $1,000 build. Moving on to the video card, I chose the MSI Radeon R9 398GB video card. Ever since this channel has been growing though, I've been seeing more fanboy wars going on in the comment section, and I'm not a big fan of that. So if you guys want an NVIDIA video card, just go ahead and pick up the GTX 970. It seems like people are always going to have allegiance to one brand over the other. I'm not trying to get into the wars that people have because at the end of the day, I don't really care. Just pick whichever one that you prefer. Right now, I do think the R9 390 is a bit better value. It's $330, which is about the same price of the GTX 970 currently. And it's an 8GB video card, which is ridiculous, but that might come into play later on down the line if you decide to play games at 1440p or even 4K. And as far as performance go, if you're playing games at 1080p, you'll be maxing out the majority of games and getting 60 frames per second. But as always, there are anomalies in PC gaming. You know, if you're building a $1,000 build and you're expecting to run a broken game like DayZ at 60 FPS, it's not going to happen. That game is just broken no matter the hardware you have. But games that are well optimized like The Witcher 3, Dying Light, Metal Gear Solid 5, all those games are going to run really well on the R9 390. And like I said, if you guys want an NVIDIA video card, check out the MSI GTX 970, the EVGA GTX 970. I run a GTX 970 myself, and I can tell you guys that GPU offers really great performance. So either route you take, you're going to be getting really good performance either way. For the power supply, I went with the EVGA SuperNOVA Next 650 watt 80 plus gold certified. This is fully modular. So at 650 watts, this is going to lock you out of a crossfire option. But like I've always said, I'm not a big fan of crossfiring or SLIing video cards. I've always said if you do want more video card performance, just sell the video card you have and then buy something of a higher tier. If you want to get something better than the R9 390, well then sell it and then get some like a GTX 980 Ti or something like that. I've always just preferred single card solutions because whenever you do SLI or crossfiring, a lot of games just aren't going to take advantage of what you paid for. And this 650 watt power supply is $75. It's fully modular, so that's going to keep cable management a breeze. And this power supply has great reviews, so all around is a good fit in the build. It's a high quality power supply. Finally, for the case, I went with the NZXT S340 Black ATX mid-tower case. I've recommended the S340 in a lot of my builds. It's a fantastic case, and the black color is actually going to go really well with the color scheme of the build. And it definitely helps to get a fully modular power supply with a case like this, since this case does have a side window and, you know, showing it off, you're not going to want cables all over the place. And like I said, because you have a fully modular power supply, it's going to keep cable management much easier. And at this point, I've recommended the S340 to death, so I'm sure most of you guys know what the case is about. Go read some reviews of it. All of them remark how the S340 is a very high quality case and you guys won't be disappointed with it. So guys, that's going to wrap up this video. As always, thank you for watching. If you have a request for a future video, leave it in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Have a great day, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.